and the mission and vision are the parts of an internal environment, and this decides my way of business, what type of a business I am. And another one is the management structure and the nature. Yes, what type of a management structure I have and what nature I have, what policy I have, that leads to the business internal environmental factors. There are another components of internal environment, human resource, what type of an human resource I have, company image and the brand equity. This company image and brand equity, the value of the brand in the market, how the brand is looked in the market is the brand equity. What's the image of the brand? That's also a part of an internal environment, and I can control it. It's in my hand. I can design it. And other some factors which can be considered as a part of an internal environment are physical assets and facilities, research and development and technological capabilities, marketing resources, and I can say the financial resources are all the components of internal environment, the environmental factors which are under my control. Now we studied about internal. External environmental factors. I think the factors which are not in our control. That means if they are not in our control, these are those factors outside the organism which provide opportunities or pose threats to the organization. They can be an opportunity or they can be a threat to the business. Which are those? These are uncontrollable factors consisting of micro and macro. Let us see the micro factors. The micro factors are suppliers, the suppliers of the firm. They are the external component of an environment. It's micro. Customer, my customers of the business, my marketing intermediaries, that is my distribution channel, and my competitors. They are the external environmental factors which affect my business. Next, when I speak of a macro, I think the word clear, macro means the larger. When I speak of macro environment, it comprises of general trends and forces that may not immediately affect the organization, but sooner or later will alter the way the organization operates. So it is all those factors which are totally not in control of the business, but it affects the business at large. I think you might have got it. It is those government policies, the economic scenario of the country affects the business. Sudden change in the political environment, or you can say the politics, also the political government affects the business. Or now in the globalization era, we are open to the world. So any global phenomenon will also affect the business. So I can say it's a macro environment is both economic and non-economic in nature. These are those factors of environment which are economic and non-economic. So broadly, when we look at this chart, we come across there are business decisions are at the center. It's being surrounded by the internal environmental factors, and intermediary there are suppliers, public, customers, competitors, which are the micro environmental factors of external environment. And in the broader, I find it's an political environment, economic environment. These are the external environmental components that are macro in nature, which are totally not in control. So this chart makes us clear that the business decisions are being totally affected by the environmental factors. Those environmental factors are internal and external. Now, types of an environment. What type of an environment are there? We studied one is political environment, the government. What type of an government exists also affects the business. Regulatory and the legal environmental factors. What regulatory laws, regulations are there? Prior to policy of 1991, there were some regulatory restrictions were there. It was system of licensing. So the businesses have developed up to that point. There were some limitations in the business expansion, there was system of licensing. So that affects the business. The demography of the place, country, which affects the business. Socio-cultural factors also affect the business. Global environment, as I said, we are totally open to the world. We do the business in the global environment. Any sudden change in the global environment affects the business. Economic environment. Today in our session we will be broadly focusing on that part in the later session. And national competitive advantage, what type of an advantage we have, what type of a natural endowments or the resources which we have, which leads to our business. These are the types of an environment, the environmental factors which affects the business. Now we'll speak of an economic environment. Broadly we'll be focusing on that part. Economic environment. What is the word economic means? I think we know the word economics. We know the definition. It's a science which studies the human behavior for matching the ends. That is, on the one hand we have unlimited wants and we have limited resources. The limited resources has to satisfy those wants. These resources have an alternate uses. So that is an economics. I would like to say that economics is like matching in the ends. It's those consequences of human behavior where we try to satisfy our unlimited wants with limited resources which have alternate uses. So that is study of an human behavior. That is economics. And economic environment, that is, refers to all those economic factors which have a bearing on the functioning of a business. I would like to elaborate on this particular line. Economic environment refers to all those economic factors. It can be economic factors like economy of the country, if you say economic policies of the country, economic systems of the country. So when we are defining economic factors, means all those factors which have economical consequences on the business are the part of an economic environment. I repeat, economic environment refers to all those economic factors which have a bearing on a functioning of a business unit. Business depends on the economic environment for all the needed inputs. It also depends on the economic environment to sell the finished goods. Yes, as the business operates in the society, it requires raw material. It comes from this economic environment. It is part of it. And when it sells the product, it's also in the society. It is also an economic environment part. Naturally, the dependence on the business on the economic environment is total, and it is not surprising that business is one unit of the total economy. Yes, business is also a part of an economy. Any country's economy is dependent on the business. The businesses that grow, the more the businesses that grow, the more the economy will develop. The economy of the nation is dependent on the business activities. So I would say that economics is dependent on business, and I would say that business is one of the unit of an economic. When we speak of an economic environmental factors, it is difficult to have a precise definition of what type of an economic environmental factors are there, but there are some of the factors which I had listed over here. One is the growth strategy. What is the nation's growth strategy? What the nation's policies are there? What economic progress or the growth the nation is trying, that leads as a factor of an environment, economic environment of the business. Another one is economic system. As the business operates as I said, it's one unit of an economic system. Means what type of a system? That economic system, I think we all know, it decides about the ownership. What type of an ownership is there? Whether it's private, public, government, or mixed, which will elaborate more on this economic system in the later session. So economic system also decides the way the businesses will operate. Third is economic planning. I said this factor, the plan, because this is required. Until and unless there is no regulations or rules are not there, it will be a very haphazard situation. The public enterprises also requires the objectives, the plans. And for private ownership, if we are completely having an economic system where there is a private ownership, there also some regulations or restrictions are required. So economic planning is also a part of an economic environment. Industry, industrial policies, what type of an industries exist, and this industries leads to the economic progress of the country. So it's also one of an economic environmental factor. Agriculture, because most of the industries are dependent on the raw material from the agriculture sector, and our country's economy was agrarian economy. Now we have moved towards the service sector, but still 48 to 50% of our population is dependent on agriculture. So that also decides our economic environment. Next is infrastructure. The infrastructure facilities is the must for the progress of the business, and this decides about the business environment. So that also is one of the factor of an business environment, economic environment of the business. Financial and the fiscal sector, regional imbalances, and price and distribution control and economic reforms. So these are some of the economic environmental factors which I have listed over here that are the components of an economic environment of the business. We will be elaborating few in this session. Very first, let me come up with a political system. When we speak of a political system, is the form of government. What form of a government is there? Is it parliamentary or absolute? If it is parliamentary form of government, the most of the citizens, the government consults with the citizens for the various decisions, the policies. So it's a parliamentary form of government, also leads to an economic environment which is more focusing on the citizen, and the policies or the systems of working of the business are dependent on the parliament's laws, acts. When we speak of an absolute system, it's monarchies, dictatorships. In absolute system, like we have examples of some of the countries, like Saudi Arabia we have Brunei, Bhutan, where this absolute regime of this system. There are some United Kingdom and Japan are a good example of constitutional hierarchy. That is, we have over there the blend of the parliamentary democratic rule model. Another one is government can also be classified into the number of political parties. This also affects the business. Like as for example, we have a stable government at present in our country, so we come with very good reforms. The government comes with very good reforms because it's stable. At present it has been given the mandate by the people, complete mandate is given. So this leads to the better economic environment of the business. So completing political system, I would say that the political system also affects the environment, economic environment of the business. Now we'll come to economic systems. As I have listed earlier in my session, there are some of the factors, but in that we'll be taking up few of the factors. One factor which we are taking today is economic system. What is an economic system? It is of a country provides another basis for the classification of the type of the government. These systems serve to whether the businesses are privately owned or government owned, or if there is a combination of private and government ownership. Basically there are three systems which we have studied. Economic system, it is system, I think the word is more clear with you. The system where we used to study in science, it's used to come that when an organs which are performing the similar type of a function, they form a system. So over here, when we are speaking of an economic system, it is all those economic organs or economic bodies which are trying to have an economic development as in their primary goal or objective, and trying to achieve is said to be an economic system. But basically we'll focusing over here in the form of an government. What type of an government is there? What type of an government ownership is there? Private ownership is there or mixed? So over here we'll classify it into three economic systems. That is, one is we have communist, socialism, capitalism and mixed economy. We'll take capitalism. Capitalist economic system, the ownership is private. In this type of a system, there is a private ownership, right to private property. You will find most of the businesses owned by the private companies. You can say it's a laissez-faire of economy, or you can say it's market system of an economy. Everything is decided by the market. Freedom to enterprise. The entrepreneurs are free, enterprise is free. Okay, we have some economic problems, some questions, what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. These are the three economic problems which we try to find the answers to it, and those answers are given by the market. In the capitalist system, whatever, what to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce is decided by the market. So in capitalist economic system, if the business is operating in the capitalist economic system, it's free, the ownership is private, and it's also free to produce based on its profit expectation. He'll decide whether he gets more profit, he will go in that business. Another one is freedom of choice by the consumer. The consumers are also free in this type of a system. So when we speak of a capitalist system, economic system of a business, so what type of businesses will be there? Those businesses where the businesses will be there, where they can earn maximum profit. So we'll find some of the advantages of the capitalist economic system, that it will lead to the creativeness, innovation. More and more innovation will take place because the choice of the consumer is there and choice to producer is there. So whatever is being demanded in the market will be produced by the consumer. Another one is it will be completely profit motive. As I said, in capitalist system it's private ownership, there will be no concept of society, social concept, it's profit. So all those social part will not be there in it. There will be competition because it's free, and the price system, it will be